and welcome to today's webinar called How to Leverage the Power of App Connectors to Deliver Faster Integration. This webinar is brought to you by Express Computer in partnership with IBM. I am Govin Chaudhary, correspondent with Express Computer. In an increasingly digital world, enterprises are opening up their business platforms to external stakeholders, opening new channels to market, delivering new services, monetizing data, and expanding ecosystems for an enhanced user experience. It is a crucial factor for competitiveness. However, in a multi-cloud and diverse application world, most organizations struggle to integrate data and applications in an environment which is changing rapidly every day. The need of the hour is pre-built security-rich intelligent connectors that lets you connect applications on premises or in the cloud. These connectors enable business to take advantage of API-driven architectures, connect cloud-based applications, or quickly utilize artificial intelligence technologies to extend the value and investment in their existing data systems. To know more today, we have with us Mr. Om Prakash Upadhyay, Senior Specialist, IBM Cloud from IBM India and South Asia. Mr. Om Prakash started his journey with core engineering for 8 years and later as a programmer from 2001. He has been with IBM for the last 14 years in the domain of integration. He is instrumental in transformation of technologies such as API with customer focused solutions and helping customers to adapt change in business and technology with real business knowledge and collective intelligence as a subject of matter across experts South India and Asia. But before we delve into the session, I will read out about the webinar information. This webinar is being broadcasted live and will be available as on demand. This is an audio-visual webinar. We will have 4 questions in between. I request you all the participants or all of them to participate in this. We will have a round of question and answer at the end of the session. You can send in your questions using the Q&A text box, and we will address the same based on time after the presentation. If you face any technical issues, please use the Q&A text box to send in your issue, and we will try to sort the same to the best of our abilities. If any of your questions are unanswered, we will connect with you over email to answer the same. Also, a feedback form will open in your browser after the webinar. Please fill in the form. We would love to hear your valuable feedback. Welcome to the virtual dais, Mr. Upadhyay. Over to you.
Thank you, for introducing me. Let me take you to the journey of understanding and then slowly developing the APIs. And at the end, we'll talk about the app connectors, how IBM is helping in making use of app connectors to increase APIs and what is the future of API. These are the primary agendas which will. Let's step in understanding what is an API and why it's so popular. If you look at the last 10 years economy, mostly many of them are communicating through API, communicating with complicated system. Uber is the best of the example which we have. We can see eBay. You are booking your car and using API for integrating, passing the information, processing the transaction, and service fulfillment. So this is where API economy is coming into action. API economy. What is an API? So API is basically, were there APIs earlier also? Why it is popular these days? So basically, in a business, what we have seen that in the collaboration with the agreed format, and it's communicating between two entities, like one is publisher, other is subscriber. In this modern world, if the data is going seamlessly, so in mathematics, if we say it's a function and there is an input in a predefined format, if you put into the function, you get an output. That's what the API is. And this helps in collaborating. We can see Google Maps as one of the example of API. You is another example. These are common examples of API of functions which are floating on the web. Can we categorize into the types of API? Yes. There are certain common API, internal API, composite API, and the types of APIs are like you communicate with SOAP, XML, JSON, and REST. These are typically the technology which is used in interfacing the API. What are benefits and where we see the benefit of using an API in an industry? So if you look at a business stakeholder, every stakeholder has its own perspective. Business stakeholder, consumer, customer, and technology. These are in collaboration doing in API. Business stakeholder, the survey says that it helps him 18% of a market like agility, moving faster, a new concept and increasing this. The API brings and it increase the market. Then can it increase the modernization? Yes, it has shown the results up to 33%. On the consumer side or a customer side, we have seen by using an API call, registering, doing registration for a car with Uber or something like that, the customer satisfaction has increased with 43%. It has increased like if you want to put a complaint for a particular drive, you can put a complaint and you are benefited that your ride was incomplete and still you are charged. All these communications have given a delivery value to the customer. In case of technology, whenever someone should integrate, it was a cumbersome job where people used to put the reusability was in stake. So this stakeholders of technology, they have seen an improvement in reusing these APIs and improving the DevOps cycle. So these are the common benefits in the stakeholder kind of scenario. Let's understand how the APIs are evolved. And before going to that, there's a lot of confusion. What is service-oriented architecture? What is an API? Are both same? I'll give a small example to understand what is different between SOA layer and API layer. There's a person, he walks to a restaurant, and in a restaurant, he looks at a menu and he picks the items which he needs to be served. And then the order goes to a kitchen. And in the kitchen, the batter is mixed in such a form that it is delivered in a form of a service to you. And then you take the service and pay to the, after completing, you pay the restaurant. Another model where you call the restaurant and restaurant looks at the service, you order the service and the home delivery is done. Now, if we look at the two example, and this we do day in, day out, anything which is happening inside the organization, where the service is given and it is trusted that the customer which are coming inside the restaurant and you're serving them, you say that he will pay. But in case of the API call, like one which is outside your organization and he wants to exchange your data, in those cases, in restaurant example, you have seen that when you give an order, the person on the other side, he receives the call, he validates with the distance, he validates with the pre-order, or he does a confirmation by recalling you saying that I have missed something. So these are typical styles which we do. But when you pass an information which is coming from the outer world, in terms of API, you need to validate things. And that's the reason there's a thin boundary between service-oriented architecture and API. There are new terms which are coming up. We talk about microservice. You heard about what exactly is microservice. I'll give a small example which will help you in understanding. If you visualize a 200-liter tank of syntax tank and it's filled with water, and then you have another set which 2 liters bottle which they are arranged. If there is a one leak in 200-liter tank, entire water flows out. It takes, the speed is high, and then you keep on looking at that, there is no water, you have a water problem. But if you look at 2-liter bottle which are arranged and it has contained same, just segregated in that form, if one bottle goes, you can replace the other bottle. If one bottle leaks, you can replace there could be a leak in 40 bottles and you can replace them. So basically, microservice is a snippet. It's a small form of a water tank into a small bottle, where what we are doing is we are segregating these bottles in form of a service. Let's take one banking example, and on the right hand side you can see that the fund transfer is one case. Like if you send an NEFT request, or you are doing an IMPS, you are doing Google Pay, anything coming is a fund transfer happening between one bank to the other bank. That's the microservice which is built, which helps in spinning based on demand request coming in. Same goes with the other two as well. So these are the primary things which we see as a microservice driven architecture, breaking the machine into a small functions, and that can auto scale to overcome the problem of leakages to assign to the customers the microservice. Similarly, we can see that these days we hear a lot about breaking and solo applications, the monolithic application into microservice. So there are various mechanisms which people are looking into breaking those services. Now the question arises, if I'm building a microservice, will be SOA or it will be different architecture? SOA is even is inside service oriented architecture. And there's one more slide which will give you more clarity on the SOA. An API goes in a form of small container which is inside the kitchen. The example is like if you order for a dosa and order for a idli, the batter is the same. Only the process mechanism changes, and it has been created in such a form that it can be served to you. Now, this is a classic example where people look at IT system and they say that, okay, I have two-tier architecture. On the left hand side, the monolithic application, and that monolithic application, what I've created, I created a service which does create a record. Like in some case in CRM systems, creating of a customer record, then retrieving a record, updating, and all these goes to database. So basically two-tier application. And when you have to expose this service, you have to do web for web client or IoT devices which are going notification, or from mobile which are people are connecting. This is what the monolithic applications are. When I say that I'm segregating them into each channel, which is coming from web channel, it's coming from IoT devices, mobile, and they're passing through the gateway as API gateway. As we discussed, like since it is coming from the outer world, we need to validate, we need to verify from the where it is coming, and then pass to these services. One of the more example, if you can visualize, is that if you are doing a shopping for a book and a small bookstore, and when you do shopping on the book, what it will say, it pops up that put validate with your Gmail ID, and when you put the Gmail ID at the back end, the token is created and it goes to the website of books, and you can purchase that. But in this scenario, the bookstore is not managing any created services. It's all created by Google, and it's validating with its email ID and sending token to the bookstall that it's an authentic Gmail user and he can go ahead with this. Now let's understand. We hear a lot of jargons on microservice. We talk about API. We talk about SOA. Let's look at evolution and history, how it has done. Every organization, maybe wherever you see a computer, every organization had created a business related system. Like in case of example of banks, it's core banking. If you look at the manufacturing, the SAP ERP, and many other like CRM, these are isolated systems and these are built with respect to their functionality. But after that, there was an evolution. People thought that since same data is kept on multiple systems, I can do an automate of passing these information from one system to the other system. So there was a point-to-point connection built, and people matured from level 1 to level 2 in the sense of understanding. Let's do point-to-point, and there was a connectors and various things came into action. After that, people thought, okay, like we are doing the data and it's creating a lot of threads. Let's put same as an ESB. In case of a SOA example, what we have seen is a kitchen. Like ESB is one way where you can translate, transform the messages going into one form to other form. Rather than having a tight coupling, you can look at something like a loose coupling into the examples. Like you have a file protocol converted to HTTP and vice versa. Then when you are creating this as an ESB is a tool which is doing this, it organization matures and say this is service oriented architecture. As we have seen in the past example that in the kitchen restaurant, this from level 1 to level 4 maturity of an organization, it's inside the organization. And when you are serving and creating some service on the ESB and fulfilling the request, that level of maturity organization is raising its having service oriented architecture where they are deploying this. Now when you expose this service to the outer world, this becomes your maturity of level 5. So now the organization is moving and it feels that it is rich with a lot of services inside the organization. By exposing some services, can I do monetization and expose them? So that's level 5. And then moving further using new technology like blockchain, machine learning, artificial intelligence, that's there are some organization at level 6. So basically, what is the purpose of this diagram? The purpose of this diagram is to scale, to gauge organization level where we are and how we have to move, which level. In future, you'll see many more levels coming in, but this gives a scale to measure the organization where we are, and from there where we'll go. So this is what the diagram is about. Now what's happening next is that some organization at level 5, some at 2, everyone is talking about microservice and building a microservice and going to that. So Docker is one of the commercial name on these microservice development, which we talked. Let's understand how these are getting connected. This microservice, and it's a part where the services like SOA represent more toward the microservice. And then we can see these as systems which are developed, they can be converted to microservice and ESB is helping also. So all are getting into a small bottles where they will do a respective function which has been assigned to it, and they can auto scale up, auto scale down. It will cater to your horizontal scaling based on, and it's a demand based scaling. Like if you need more requests to fulfill, it will occupy the system and create that. And the new technology which is coming in the machine learning and blockchain is already based with the Docker kind of concepts. So this is one way of putting the microservice. Then all these applications which are built isolated, people are looking at applying the artificial intelligence on top of it and making that as a next step. Furthermore, to have a permanent ledger that no one can destruct the ledger value, people are looking at containing and handshaking with the blockchain such that records cannot be further modified and the history can be seen. And this is where the technology is going towards. Future, we can see a lot of multiple things which are coming in top of it. And this is how, just for clean and simple understanding, these are a layer-based system of approach to understanding the organization. I'll take one example where we have seen a great success of API. Uh, is it possible that in manufacturing it will come or any other organization it will come in the API? Yes, there will be journey. So since bank has mature and gauge to a certain level, that's the reason I'm showing this diagram. But for other industry also, soon those will come into action. So in the level form which we have seen, like taking an example, you can build a similar model for your industry as well. So we start with integrated banking where we saw that mobile apps were the one of the most popular, like, and they, you go to the mobile app and you do a banking and it's at the bank and people don't go to the branch. That was one of the success when it started with calling the backend API of a core banking. And imagine there were days that people will say that core banking will be never exposed to the outer world. Now the banks are exposing this to the outer world, to the fintechs. That's the reason you can see a Swiggy and other mobile apps, popular apps are getting doing the API calls at the backend. Then the banking undeveloped, like unbundled, they look at the regulator and open some standards. PSD2 is one of the standards when in India we can say UPI is one, something similar to that. Then there is a maturity. Currently, the open banking is one which people talk about, looking at standardization of the services. And after that, the marketplace, like we can go to a site where all the, it's like a bazaar. In the bazaar, the APIs are exposed, and the bazaar you can go and choose which of the APIs, like fund transfer API or service APIs. So these are like marketplace. So now the API journey in case of banking has reached to the marketplace. Slowly, insurance is also catching with the similar journey, and mostly, like, since there is a data at the lower, like you can see, mostly agriculture also, like we are looking at a supply chain mechanism, tracking from purchase of seed, sowing it, mapping with the weather API, and then proceeding further and engaging with the farmer and giving the entire life cycle of the seed generation, is all interacting with the API, and this is how the agriculture is also going to the next step. Okay, so here I will pause for a question. So I've given you the scale measurement of the organization. Govind, would you like to explain this question?
Sure. I think it's time for a poll. I would request our audience to participate in the poll. I'll read the question. At what level is your organization with respect to architecture level? I'll say the options: isolated system, point to point connection, service oriented architecture, slash ESB slash EAI, application programming interface, or the last option is blockchain machine learning artificial intelligence. I'll repeat the question. At what level is your organization with respect to architecture level? Is it on isolated system, point to point connection, service oriented architecture slash ESB slash EAI, application programming interface, or the last option is blockchain machine learning and artificial intelligence? And we are waiting for the audience to answer the poll. We have got the results. I think 35% of people feel that application programming interface, they are at the level of application programming interface. And 28% has opted for service oriented architecture, and 15% has opted for isolated system.
Yeah, thank you, Govind. Taking back from you, so good. Like there are approaches of API and the connector. So let me move to the next section. Is about API use cases, which we talk about. So the case which we see in the black color is the organization. So various documentation and the connectors are there. So it's within the organization, and when we are building a ecosystem, basically exposing the APIs to the outer world, like connecting to the pharma, connecting to dairy, connecting to the other aggregators, as how the this is how the ecosystem are getting built in. And the classic example is Vahan API. When you want to, you can put the card detail, you can know the who's the owner. So such API ecosystem are getting built. People are building and use cases. For one of the best example is that for the COVID, see the vaccine, there are certain APIs which are exposed, and people are using those APIs in sending a notification that the slot is available over here. If you register with them, and they will send you SMS notification. So these are the ecosystem of API getting connected, and they are getting engaged, and that's how the ecosystem is getting built. Okay, so now till now we just spoke about API exposing our API and connecting. The maturity is moving further, where on a technology, there are a lot of portals which are built with various banks and organization, with the complexity of how rich the API is getting developed. There are certain, like you can see, some are basic types of API. Example is sending an ATM location. So to Google, if you want to get the nearest ATM for particular case, it will pop up and show you the destinations. So these are some open APIs, and some bank has matured in exposing master APIs and other APIs over there. So what is the purpose of showing this and why these portals are there? So what we have seen that now the next trend is API shopping, which I will look at. As you go on Amazon, I'm just correlating so to give you an idea what exactly is the aspect of the API. So when you click on based on the business, the products will be displayed to you. So basically, I'll give you one example like collection is one of the example. You gave an API to customer saying that I'll do the collection for you, and he will expose the API. So if someone wants to use, so this API is about the publisher or a producer. Now the consumer comes over on this site and he sees what types of APIs are available, and based on that he chooses the product the way you choose in the Amazon. Or this site will be good, intelligent enough to understand your pattern, which industry you belong to, and it will show the APIs used in those industry. So on selection of these product, it the ideal way when you do a shopping, you add to the cart. Same mechanism and same analogy is that when you pick the API, you will see the relevant product accordingly. Like in this example, you see a E collection and you have a variant of the E collection sending like MIS report, intermediate report, second level validation. This is inside. So it's like a wrapper on which there are variants which are available. Choose the variant the way you choose, and then after that, as you put a detail of the purchase like master details, if you see in a similar way, you can say that I have account. If I don't have account, I need to register. That's a non-functional requirement which you do. And then after that, there is an ask for where to be delivered. Like in case of shopping, you say that I want a delivery over here. Same with API, which IP address, which port number, and how do I connect to your EAT environment, where do I connect to your production environment, is there any type of a certificate which you need to add to go with this API. So this information is basically captured on the portal the way it is getting into the shopping example. And then when he says proceed, like the final host, production host, and everything, and certificate has been attached and validated on the website itself in the marketplace. And then he says subscribe. What happens? He gets an invoice the way you get an invoice in case of shopping. In this case, you get a list of the various APIs which you have consumed. Some APIs you have selected, but you have not subscribed. So it gives you a status report on the various example. And then you, after that, the next step, you click on field mapping. What field mapping does is basically on the right hand side is the producer API. This gets popped on the screen, and on the left hand side, based on the information of API which customer has loaded, it can be it's there on the left hand side. What he has to do, he has to do a mapping, like pick from left hand side, map it to right hand side detail, so that it gets the information and then the translation. And after doing a mapping, when he says submits, these fields mapping are there. There's also intelligence on a recommendation that virtual account maps with transaction action account. So such type of intelligence is their system. And when you do a submit, what it will do at the back end, the DevOps process is triggered with the microservice. So now imagine that customer as a consumer is doing all work, and he's just saying that I have done a business work for you. And after that, it goes with the various process of a DevOps. Like the backend code is written at the Git, it goes to the system as a Junkin. It does the security check, build the image for that customer, signatures with respect to customer, put them to the registry so that whenever there is a problem, it will pull from the registry, scan the image, and do the development testing. So all these automation, and customer get a report saying that your deployment is successful on the UAT as development environment. Do you want to progress? So it will give a pop-up to customer, and based on the approval and the process of the organization, the pipeline will promote him to UAT, and then from UAT testing, it will further promote him to production. So the customer has a fair idea with the automation. What exactly we are doing with this mechanism? We are trying to reduce the lifecycle deployment of a customer on API usage, and DevOps is the basic, the automation which is going in the backend to do this work, and the cycle time of onboarding is similar to what you are shopping. Now there is a question for you. By doing this mechanism, do you feel that in future people will be doing APIs as a market the way the Amazon and other are doing it? If you feel yes, please pool for yes. And if you feel no and you're not sure that future will go in this manner, just attend the questions.
Okay, so we have the another poll. Do you think the API market is the future? Option is either yes, no, or not sure. I would request our audience to once again answer the poll. I'll repeat the question. Do you think the API marketplace is the future? The options are yes, no, and not sure. We are waiting for the audience response. And here we have the results. 79% people think that it's a yes. API market is the future. And 17% people are not sure. And only 4% people feel that the answer is
Great response.
yes.
Thank you very much, Govind. And great response. So basically, we agree that there will be automation soon, and people will be moving with the mechanism. Now, every time, what is a challenge which we see in the mechanism? We talk about the automation and DevOps cycle. We talk about the challenges of connecting the system. Today, the problem which we face in industry is that if you have an API, you ask the other person to build an API. Imagine a school. School will never have an infrastructure, and school will never have this mechanism of someone building an API. Now, at a digital stage, we want to connect, we want to grow our ecosystem. And when we want to grow our ecosystem, we need something which will overcome this problem of API building by the consumer as well. So if today I have built an API, I say I'm a producer, you are a consumer, come to my portal, look at the standard, or you go to the API marketplace in future and click and become an API driven organization because I'm uploading the HTTP, I'm uploading the Swagger. Will that solve a problem? I think that's a bigger challenge we have. And we look at various cases in the sense the cases are like school wants an automation. School says that I'll collect a fees, I'll give you the attendance of the student, I'll give a remark in which the penalty needs to be collected for the student, but I'll send you an Excel sheet on an email. Will that be a legitimate transaction? Is that facility of API is available with you? That's the ask at the lower level. Now, second level is that we have a discrete system, and we have customer with lot of composite. Some are on AWS, some are on eBox, some says I will upload the file. So for such enrichment, another thing, we need to have connectors. So what we are doing, taking for one level further. So if you remember when I showed you the Amazon product, similarly these boxes and variants will be shown in this connector as well. So there are 150 connectors. I'll go through them, the types of connectors which we have, and we are looking at API marketplace getting rich not only with business case but also getting rich with the types of the connectors which are coming in there. Now, if I have the connector, the way where customer can go and define his own flow, where this is how it will work. People will go build the marketplace, and they say that I want to come and connect through Eventbrite, Gmail, Google Sheet, or an email, Microsoft email. So they go to these applications and they choose from which part they are coming, the way they are choosing in the marketplace. And then from there, he says, okay, I connect you through the email. And these are the protocol details which I'll push into the email connectors. And after sending, there could be an if and else condition. Like if the email consists of a security digital signature, then pass this, take this path. It's a just event kind of flow. You can put those schemas and rules in between. Once you have applied the rule, then and put more detailing, you can have a conditional looping on those and with the data which is coming in. And then you can say that once I send an email, if it is marketing stuff, then you call a service which is there in a market. So, or you can call a SMS notification. So these are callable service which can connect to any cloud. They can call any invoke any services in the on the internet which is available. So based on email and conditional statement, you are making a call on the web service and defining the data, and then you can, after completing the call as successful or not, it can go to a Gmail, generating a list saying that in the email you have given me 100 records for person A, and these were the email IDs. On the net, I went through that. I've sent, out of which 20, I get a notification for 20 people, the mailbox been rejected or something like that. So what we are doing, we are mashing the technologies. We are pulling the information and plugging them in a sequential way so that it becomes easy and easily to understand and graphically look at the way we look at a flow chart. Just plugging the technology with respect to the flow chart and completing the cycle. So can I grow that flow chart in a bigger way? Answer is yes. And now we'll go in small details or so details which are the connectors which are available over here. So, Amazon, I'll just touch the popular ones. The Amazon S3 bucket connectors there. Box callable is basically you are calling the other web service on the other cloud. Then we have Cisco Web Teams, Coupa, Confluence, email, Flex Engage. So Freshdesk, Gmail. I talk about the email. Then uh, the the Google Analytics, Google Drive. So if you have an email, you want to keep a copy of entire employee on the Gmail, Google Drive. You can have those types of connectors and they routing them to the next step. And then you have HTTP request also, and HTTP, HTTPS both are the just a configuration and it will change. Then next is the cloud and storage. Then you have even a database kind of connective connectors which will go to database and put out the stream, event stream. Food trace is basically IBM blockchain where you can look at tracking of the grains from the one to the other food grains development. So that's a food trace connector which gives directly connection to the blockchain. Then we have master data. Maximo is another connector. MQ is about the messaging data you are putting into the MQ. Through this, can I draw a flow chart that message come from email and I put to the MQ queue, and then it goes for a transaction into core bank and then get a response. Yes, you can have that sequence flow diagram and pull these and integrate with them. Same with the can have artificial intelligence as a part of the system, like discovery, doing a natural language classifier. In the sense, I send a document through the email, then it goes to natural language classifier and validates that. Example is like I have sent an email of my 10th mark sheet and I have a send a scan copy. Then that goes to a natural language classifier which classifies the document and it pulls the marks and the subjects and analyze that these are genuine, and that at the next processing level does it take to the other things. Then similarly we can talk about the tone analyzer or the cases of Watson visual recognition. So these are the types of connectors: Microsoft Active Directory, then SQL Server, MySQL, then you have Oracle database, PostgreSQL, then Salesforce connectors are there directly. You can look at the campaign management, retrieving record, and pushing through. the system. SAP is one bundled one, like you can connect to SAP, put the details of SAP. You can have a graphical view of the connectors and Slack, Sugashiram Survey, Wolf, WordPress, and Sobra. So the whole idea is that in the marketplace in future, as we saw that the pool says 79% was API development. Now that's the reason we have app connectors we are talking about, enriching that marketplace with this technology. So people want to connect. Today we talk about the business only, but if they have system and they want to connect easily, they themselves want to develop the flow and they deploy into the system and get reap the benefit of the marketplace. So these connectors will be available for them as a part of the system. Why we are talking more about the why this part is very important. Looking at the future of API, this is the report courtesy to Desist. Uh, it has been forecasted that in the future is about the connecting devices and multi things like toll naka and everything. So we have seen that it's an increase in exchanging data between the system. It has been surveyed and say 83% of will be open API people will be doing payment initiation with that in future. And there is a lot of initiative on IoT device exposing API connecting to the various system in the grid. So visualization that in future there could be a grid where all these API information will be flowing the way we have an electrical grid. So and everyone getting benefit and people hook to the grid and look at various API and based on the choice they want to do, they can connect. That's the future we see that there would be grid. This is McKinsey's report, courtesy to McKinsey. So what been observed like 2025, the future could be similar like a bubble diagram, and this is done for a retail institution. They have various for other industry as well. So in the retail institution, if you see, there are some B2B market, B2B service, global service also, and wealth mutual funds. In the retail industry, these are the bubbles there which they have predicted that there will be a growth in these areas with respect to API ecosystem, and people will be partnering to them, and that's how people should visualize how much weightages they should give in the percentage wise when they are connected from the retail industry perspective. Now, other industry perspective, there are other reports which can be taken up, uh, and this is how we look at the analysis of the report coming into the digital form. I think on time I have completed the presentation. So let's uh, over to you, Govind. Look for QA.
Right, sir. I think it's time for the audience question. And Mr. Naveen Kumar has asked the question: is
Okay.
SOA irrelevant to an organization who wants to go on an API level 6 maturity level, or SOA is still relevant for level 6 organization?
Okay. So great question. Thanks, Naveen, for asking this question. So yes, you have brought a valid point. SOA was an architectural thought during when the API was not popular. These days, and you may see that in the restaurant example I spoke about, trusting everything and getting it. But you are making an API and SOA. Yes. So for the new organization which has already, they can directly talk about API. SOA is an architectural thought uh, to make them as a service. And if you remember long back, people talk about service in form of WSDL, SOAP request coming in, and now we are moving towards a REST lighter weight concept of API. Yes, your answer is right. It's not relevant now, but just to give a maturity level for the organization which has been growing in the IT industry, some has gone through that layer of SOA. That was the reason I presented in a scale form.
There's another question from Mr. Ajit. API is good, but has the integrations changed in the recent times?
Yes, yeah. So that's what I was addressing, that integration has changed over a period. And what we saw the last section was the app connectors. So now, earlier, the challenge people have and marketplace, the problem was everyone was not able to connect because of the ask from the producer and consumer was that you have to handshake with API only. Now the market is opening towards exposing connector as a service. The whatever we saw, these were we expose as connector as a service, which get plugs into the API marketplace. So example is that if my customer is having an SAP and other customer is having a core banking or some other service call, do I need to go to SAP and ask them to build an API to call my API? Answer is no. Now these connectors will directly hook to their system to the service based on all the security measures which are required by the organization. And this is where the change will happen. And these connectors will become web browser based connectors rather than sitting the organization. It will leverage the outer world as well as connector as a service. And that is where we see the change.
We'll take the next question. It's from Mr. Upmanyu. What
Mhm.
is the difference between API connector and low code or no code platform?
Okay, that's a brilliant question, I would say. Uh, no code, low code. Yes, the the answer is that yes, you are saying low code. Yes, it is low code, and the connector is yes, it has been predefined and tested. Yes, you are right. You are. It's a low code. Uh, a no code answer is right. But there is a change. Why we are not saying low code or no code? Reason is that we are looking as API marketplace place from publisher and consumer perspective. And what we are saying that the way you are doing shopping today, like on the consumer side, you go like example I would give that if you go to Amazon and you just search for something and they smartly understand at the back end that you have searched for clothes and they give you more option. And now the challenge is in the industry is that there's a lot of inorganic growth of an API. People have built API left, right, center. So I've seen that there's an inorganic growth and people are not aware. Can I reuse this API or I have to build a new one. That's the inorganic growth. Now the thought is going on controlling this in the sense reusing the things. The only way to reuse them and on the front is that you build some interface, you give some GUI where they can use. So answer to your question is that low code, no code. Yes, it is right in form of data form, but no code, low code for a consumer coming from the outer world and giving him the experience of low code, no code is what exactly we are seeing in the the API marketplace as the next steps. It is
Uh,
similar to no code. No.
we have
Yes.
a next question from Mr. Arun.
Mhm.
Industry is going with TAMF open APIs. How can we make it compliant to it easily?
Okay, so can you just TMF elaborate more on the TMF API?
I think Mr. Arun needs to elaborate more on TMF. Till the time he does, we'll take the next question.
Mhm.
What is the life of ESB with the evolution of API and microservices?
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question, I would say. Uh, yes, sir. The ESB is the purpose of ESB is translation and transformation, and microservices that you are building into the logic of translation and transformation. If I get something as a tool which will help me in translating graphically, helping me in making those translation and transformation with a GUI, easy way of understanding, and which is being tested and in form of a microservice. When I say in my form of a microservice, example is that one example we are doing a project over here, and the footprint of ESB when you used to run, we used to say that you require minimum 4 core to run this. But when I'm running the similar case and API, it goes to a milli core. So basically, ESB is now gauged into a small unit, and that becomes microservice. As only the benefit is in the microservice and ESB comparison, that in case of microservice, I can write the code, I can write a snippet, I can do the translation, transformation. It is a similar logic which you're doing in the monolithic as well. But ESB, it's been tested for transformation with all those adapters, and the footprint is very low. That's the reason we are talking about ESB getting into agile integration, where you break them and put a one case scenario using a tool in a faster manner and deploy it. And that's the answer to your question. That microservice and ESB, yeah, people, there is a thought that ESB will soon vanish because of microservice, because microservice gives you lot of benefit, like circuit breaker is one of the benefit which you see on the, like based on demand, it's auto scaling. Then you can have a logic on the backend calls, and ESB was doing similar thing. Still the file based mechanism exists in the various organization, and still people are doing file based movement, and they are coming through email and these. That's there the microservice, the ESB will argument that it will help him in doing those processes where there is a technology problem. But calling a system with an API at the back end, microservice is the right path, and ESP is the right path where you have legacy system to connect.
Okay, so I'll take the next question. How does this kind of platform deal with heterogeneous data, like in a school, for example, academic data, administrative or HR data, financial data, and etc.?
Okay, so in a school example, which we say that there are certain category of data. So I can't go to the school and say build an API. The only way is that I'll give him connectors where school can register to the site, and like when he's going to the marketplace, he's choosing, okay, I am a school, and when it says school, you publish a product like this is an email. Then you have categories of APIs where we saw in the shopping scenario where he chooses the type, and based on the intelligence you give an API saying that is this financial, or is it the academic data, or is it data repository which you want to keep to us. So this type of categorization will be on marketplace, and it will help them to route to a particular case. Like example, a fee collection is one of the case. Then in marketplace, he chooses the email, he says the fee collection. But for fee collection, since it is a financial transaction, it needs to have security. Then he needs to register and get a digital signature on the email. He has to, when he's sending a data, it should be known valid email ID, plus the signature needs to be attached with that, so that file is, when it is decrypted or it is encrypted file which is coming in transit, then only that mechanism will take place. So to categorize this, that mechanism needs to be built on the API marketplace, the way we have seen in Amazon or any other scenario. We say kitchen, we say footwear. So all these classification is done by the marketplace, and that's what also we require to do on that the marketplace for schools.
The next question is from Mr. Ashish. If any organization is planning for digital transformation, is it mandatory to consider open APIs while re-architecting?
Open API is basically a standard which helps you in forming them, in recreating in a digital journey. But digital is not API. The digital is much more than that. Digital is about automation of workflow in the system. Digital is about the automation of the backend process as well. So API is one form of interacting and handshaking data and completing the transaction. Digitization is bigger than that. I'd say API is a subset of digitization journey. So this is one unit of digitization. But digitization itself is a very big subject, and it talks about robotic processes. It talks about reducing work path. It talks about, I'll give a classic case, one example, like why digitization is in I've seen in banking. Like people call bank that I need a credit card. I just give an example. When they call the IVR and say credit card required, the bank gets 100 lead, and when they see the 100 lead, they pass on to branch, and when the branch says okay 99%, they close it, saying that it is a risk and the person don't have. But if I create an automated system that will call up an IVR system and it goes to the credit system, it generates some notification and risk calculation and send a next approval or risk rating for a person rather than someone closing it manually, because sometimes what happens, they are loaded with a lot of branch work and they don't do the process. So if you bring an automation at the back end and complete wherever is possible, you build a process in such a way that it's automated. That's a part of the child. API hooks into in between with various systems to complete the task.
Sure. We
Yes.
have our next question from Mr. Vikas.
Mhm.
What kind of use case you see for API marketplace other than banking and retail? Open API is still a question on insurance and regulated industry.
Mhm. Okay, so yes, healthcare is one of the cases where we see insurance getting. I'll give you one example. I've seen this with one industry, the insurance industry. He created an health portal. There's no relationship like creating a health portal, but creating a health portal, exposing various health information and generating a lead from there for an insurance. So this case I have seen, like example is that a birth of a child at the hospital can give lead to insurance for a person. That's one of the example which I've seen, but I've not seen in India. It's in China. Uh, I've seen that the Chinese company has created a health portal. People go over there and put their health data, and then from at the back end, the insurance figure is happening. Insurance company is helping them in managing the health, but all the health details, and at the back end the insurance figuring is. So this is one of the different in thought I have seen, that insurance, it's like what we do normally. Being an insurance, we show vertically, that is my work, create a lead, do the insurance and complete the cycle. But going way ahead and creating a health portal for the citizen and understanding, analyzing the health portal and generating a lead is very different. That you are going beyond the insurance and creating things. So this is what we have seen a difference in the industry. And yes, standardization will come. There will be some initiative people will be doing. I don't have exact idea which standard body will be working on it, but yes, this is a case which I have seen, and that's the answer from my side.
So we'll take the last question for the day.
Uh-huh.
What would be the business continuity in terms of technology compatibility with support once it is implemented?
Business continuity is basically business will run as business is running. Now the question is continuity. Yes, the for the continuity, what we have seen, there is a growth from the system. People are talking about the cloud. Like if something breaks on my on-prem on my system, can I route those transactions to the cloud, and from cloud it is getting addressed? Or then future would be like I have three clouds: Amazon, Google, IBM, or the other clouds which are coming up. Can I look at a scenario when A fails, I build a redundant system on the other, it starts. So business continuity is basically building a redundancy as at the back end, and it will continue. The systems will be there. Only things is the architecturing in such a way that it gives you high availability, always ready for the business to do, and the switch over from one to other, and you have a reconciliation that if there were 100 transactions which were done on-prem, I moved to cloud, and out of which 20 were in suspended mode. So all these auto reconciliation moving from one side to the other will work, and this will not in future. This will give you more clarity, and people will be working over towards that uh, for this information source, so that your smoothness, business continuity will keep on running.
I think that's all the questions we had today.
Mhm.
If any of the audience's questions is unanswered, we will connect with the audience over email.
Okay, great. Actually, thank you everyone for attending this session, and it was pleasure to speak on the subject. And if you have any question, you can see my email ID. You can directly write to me. And if you want more information on certain topic, please do write to me, and I'll answer and try my best to answer those questions.
As
Um,
mentioned earlier, A feedback form will open in your browser after the webinar ends. Please fill in the form. I request our audience to fill in the form. We sincerely appreciate your valuable feedback. Mr. Upadhyay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Upadhyay, for sharing your insights. Thank you, audience, for sparing your valuable time for the webinar today. If you would like to get in touch with the IBM team, the details are on your screen. Take care and stay safe.